Hi guys, and Happy New Year! I hope you're all doing really well. I'm excited for another year here together on YouTube with my channel, and I hope you are too. And I'm kicking this year off with a compilation video sharing some of my favorite recipes that I posted last year. And this is inspired by my friend here on YouTube, Nikki Vegan. I'll link her video and her channel down below. She shares lots of lovely recipes and she's a really nice person, so I hope you go check her out. And in her video she had categories for her recipes, but I've been a little bit more selfish, I guess, and just chosen the recipes that I'm most proud of and that I've made the most here at home in my kitchen from last year. But if you have a favorite recipe from my channel or from my website, then please link it down below. I'd love to know what you enjoy, and this way we can share the recipes with each other as well. And all the recipes in this video will be savory ones, so there's gonna be 7 of them, 7 savory recipes, 1 for each day for the next week if you'd like. And I link all the recipes in the description box for you so you have easy access to them. And before we jump into the first recipe, I want to let you all know that every Sunday of January from now, so 4 Sundays coming up, I will be doing live streams. So I hope you will join me for them. Keep your eyes open for me posting about them, and I hope I see you there. But first of all, let's kick into the recipes from this video. And I'm gonna start with a recipe that I've really enjoyed making this year, and it's kimchi fried rice. It's from my A Week of Vegan Dinners video 2.0, and I hope you enjoy. Kimchi fried rice using the leftover rice from the day before. And to go with this rice and the kimchi, I'm chopping up some smoked tofu into cubes, which will add a little bit more protein to the dish and makes it a little bit more satisfying. And for the millionth time in this video, I'm also chopping up some garlic. I think it's obvious that we love garlic in this house, but yeah, I just chop it up and it's gonna be cooked along with the kimchi rice. And then I also slice up some spring onion that I'm gonna use to garnish later. And those spring onions are the last thing I'm chopping for this recipe, so it's pretty low maintenance, and we're ready to cook. So I'm adding a little bit of oil to my frying pan, and then I'm adding the tofu cubes first so that I can get a little bit of a surface on each side of those cubes before I cook the rest of the ingredients in there. Then I add in the garlic and I saute it for about a minute or until it's fragrant, and then I'm ready to add in some gochujang, which is a Korean red pepper paste. It's a little bit spicy and it's not essential, but it adds a nice flavor. So if you don't have it, don't worry, you can still make this. Then to the star of this dish, of course, is the kimchi. And I'm adding it into the pan and just sauteing it for a few minutes to let the flavors really cook through. And then we're ready to add the rice. And the rice has been in the fridge overnight, and it's actually better like this, that you're using a little bit stale rice. So I cooked that through for a few minutes as well. And it's nice to let it catch a little bit in the bottom, so don't be scared. Then I season with some soy sauce and I stir that through, of course. Then, as I said, you can see here that my rice has caught a little to the pan, and this is actually just delicious. So just scrape it off with a spatula and let that be part of the flavor profile of the dish. And once it's all cooked through, you turn the hob off and you add a little bit of toasted sesame oil. This is really delicious and adds a yummy flavor that just finishes off this dish. Then I serve up my kimchi fried rice in bowls, and I'm gonna top it with some select ingredients, and I'm starting with a sliced avocado. Traditionally, kimchi fried rice often comes topped with a fried egg, and I think this avocado is a nice creamy option to that. That is of course vegan. Then I sprinkle on my spring onions, and I'm also gonna sprinkle on some toasted nori seaweed as well as some toasted sesame seeds. And that nori seaweed that I'm using, I bought pre-toasted with some flavorings, but you could totally slice up some toasted nori that's meant for sushi rolls. So just use whatever you have on hand or leave it out if you don't have any. Next up, I want to share a sandwich combo with you that's perfect for packed lunches or for picnics, and it has a chickpea and apple smash filling that I really love. I often make it just to put on open sandwiches for breakfast as well, so it's pretty versatile and yeah, perfect for your packed lunch. Here comes a chickpea and apple smash sandwich that I personally love. And to make it, I'm starting by adding some avocado to a bowl with cooked chickpeas. I like to just slice mine into little cubes and then scoop it out into the bowl. I'm also adding in some sliced spring onions, as well as some chopped up parsley. Again, I'm adding in some nutritional yeast for depth of flavor and a little bit of a cheesy flavor. I'm grating in some lemon zest and adding lemon juice for even more freshness and zest and zing. Finally, I season with salt and black pepper as usual. And then I'm just gonna mash this together until it's a nice consistency. I don't break all the pieces of avocado and chickpeas. I like to leave some whole, but this is really up to you. So I set that aside as I prepare the layered sandwiches. Here I'm adding some vegan butter or margarine to some slices of rye bread, but it's really up to you if you want to add margarine. Then I add some slices of lettuce, followed by the chickpea and apple smash. Onto that, I'm layering some slices of fresh tomato, and I'm also adding on some alfalfa sprouts, which are really fresh and have lots of great nutrients in there. Then I close the lid of the other slice of bread and I half the sandwich. Into the box the sandwiches go, and then I'm ready to prepare my snack box. So with the sandwiches, I wanted to make a fresh salad. So again, I'm starting with some rockets. Then I have some thawed frozen green beans that I'm just dressing with some soy sauce before I layer it on top of the rocket. And then I go ahead and I sprinkle some more toasted seeds on top of that, because you can never have enough seeds apparently. I also add a wedge of lime to this to squeeze on just before eating. And to me, this is really a hearty, satisfying meal, while it still stays super fresh with all the nice, colorful veggies. This next recipe is the salad that Rob and I have eaten the most last year, I think. It's a vegan Caesar salad with baked tofu and some yummy crispy croutons, and the dressing is just super yummy. If you're not that into salads, I think you'll like this one still, and if you are into salads, then this is heaven. I hope you like it. So to start, I'm gonna prep the croutons. So I just cut some stale bread into chunks, and I'm using Rob's sourdough here, but I've tried this with my gluten-free bread as well, and I'm pretty sure almost any bread would work for this, at least a fluffy kind. So I'm adding the bread cubes into a bowl. I'm gonna drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil that helps them crisp up in the oven. I'm also seasoning with some salt and some pepper, and if you wanted to, you could even sprinkle in some herbs here or some garlic powder or onion powder. Either way, I mix them up well, and then I set them aside while I cut up my tofu. And I'm using a pre-marinated tofu here that has a little bit of herbs and some savory, salty flavors in there. But you could of course marinate your own tofu. I just find it easier for my weekday dinners to buy it pre-prepped. And I cube it and I pop it onto a baking tray that I like to line so that I have to clean less. And then I add the croutons onto there as well. So I bake them at the same time, which makes this really easy. And I pop that into the oven for about 10-15 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm gonna make the dressing. And here I have some soaked cashews that I drain and rinse and then add to my blender. they are gonna form the base for the dressing, which would usually be made with mayonnaise, but I think this cashew version is really yum as well. So then I just squeeze some lemon juice into the blender bowl as well, and I add some nutritional yeast, which adds a little bit of depth and umami flavor. I'm also adding some garlic powder and some Dijon mustard. And for that proper Caesar flavor, I'm adding in some brine from a jar of capers. I'm also gonna chop up the capers later and add them in. But first I'm cracking in some black pepper, I'm adding a pinch of salt as well as some water so that I can blend this dressing smooth, which only takes a minute or two in a high-speed blender. Once the dressing is all luscious and smooth, you can pour that into a jar, and we're gonna add the capers into there. So I grab the capers, which is called kapris in Swedish, as you can see, and I just chop it up, and you can chop it as fine or as rough as you want. And then I just pop that into the jar as well and mix it through. Now to the actual salad part of the salad. I'm chopping up some romaine, and I'm just cutting it into 3 quite large chunks, and then I break it apart like this. I like the leaves to be chunky, but of course this is up to you. You can chop it as fine or as chunky as you want. Then I pop that into a big mixing bowl, and I pour the dressing over the top so that I can mix that through the leaves. The dressed leaves form the base for the salad, and on top of that I sprinkle on some fresh chopped cucumber. Then my tofu and my croutons are also finished in the oven, so I sprinkle the tofu and the croutons over the top of the leaves and the cucumber. And you can never have too many croutons apparently, so I add some more. And then I'm also adding on some fresh cherry tomatoes, which are so nice now that it's summer season here in Sweden. And finally I'm finishing with some microgreens, and these are some microgreens I got from a friend that she had growing in her garden, but you can use any microgreen you like. It's just a nice way to finish off a salad, make it look a little bit more restaurant-y if you want to treat yourself. Here comes my golden stew. It's a budget-friendly, meal prep-friendly stew with chickpeas, butter beans, potato. It's super filling and super yummy, super comforting and warming. And here it comes. To get started with the stew, I'm grabbing some potatoes and I'm cubing them up. And for this recipe, I'm doing something a little bit different. So I'm gonna cube the potatoes up and then I'm gonna roast them in the oven. And then when the stew has cooked towards the end, I add the potatoes in, and this allows the potatoes to keep their shape and be a bit more chewy and have more flavor than if I just added them in earlier. So what I do is I pop them on a tray and I drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil, and then I add some salt and some black pepper as well. And then I just mix it all up really well to coat the potato cubes, and then I pop them in the oven and roast for about 20 minutes or so until they're golden and have a nice chew texture. And while the potatoes are roasting away in the oven, I get started on the stew itself. So I peel and slice some red onions into half moons. And then I'm also going to slice up quite a few cloves of garlic. I love garlic, I hope you do too. If you don't, you can leave it out, but I think it's such a great aromatic for stews. So I just slice them quite roughly, but if you don't like very strong tastes of garlic in your mouth, you can of course mince it as well. And then I bring this over to the hob and I put some coconut oil into my Dutch oven, but you could use a large pot as well. And then I saute the onions and the garlic in there with a pinch of salt And throughout cooking this stew, I like to season every time I add something new to the pot. But while the onion is toasting away on the oven, I'm gonna take a bunch of parsley and I'm gonna remove the leaves from the stems, because we're gonna put them into the stew at different times. So first of all, I just chop up the stems so that they're quite fine pieces. And then I'm also gonna prepare some spices. So here I have dried thyme, dried rosemary, as well as coriander seed. And I pop them into a mortar and pestle and I crush them up and make sure they're broken up and they're really fragrant. Then I go ahead and I add these spices into the pot with the onions and garlic. And I also add in a pinch of chili flakes. I used some smoked ones, but you can use any you like. And then I saute this along with the onions for a couple more minutes until it's really fragrant. And in the meantime, I drain a can or a carton of chickpeas and another one of butter beans. But of course you could use dried beans. Just make sure to cook them before you add them to the stew. And I rinse the beans off and they're ready to go into the stew in a little minute. But first I'm adding in some tomato puree to the pot. And on top of the tomato puree, I am sprinkling in some turmeric, and I used ground turmeric, but you can use fresh if you prefer. And then I mix that through the onions to make sure all the flavors are well combined and dispersed before adding my beans. And I actually saute the beans in the spices for a little while with some salt and pepper for seasoning. And while I mix the beans with the spices, I also sort of mash a few of them. I leave most of them intact, but I like this sort of chunkier, half mashed, half whole beans. And then I add in my parsley stems and some water, as well as some vegetable stock powder, but you could also use liquid stock if you have that on hand. Then I give it a good mix and I turn up the heat to bring the stew to a boil. And once it's boiling, I turn the heat down again to a simmer, and I sort of half cover the Dutch oven so that it can reduce and cook down and the flavors become really, really strong. And when the potatoes are done, that will happen at some point while your stew is cooking. I just set it aside while I chop up the parsley leaves, and I do it quite roughly so that you will see some nice bits of green in the stew at the end. So once the stew's been simmering for about half an hour, I add my cubed and baked potatoes. At this stage, I'm also adding in my chopped up parsley leaves, but don't forget to put some aside to use for garnish. And then I just give it all a very good mix to combine it, and you can see this lovely golden color now, and I also like the pop of green that the parsley gives. Then I taste it to see if I need to season, but I was good for this time. Just make sure you taste and season your food, and it's ready to serve. I wish this was smell-o-vision because this stew does really smell fragrant and really lovely, and I like to serve it in deep dishes and then top it off with a spoonful of vegan yogurt. I'm using quite a full-fat kind of yogurt here, and then I'm also topping it with some pickled red onions, and I'll leave a link in the description box to a recipe of how to make this. It's really easy and lots of you have already tried it. Thank you for sharing with me. And then I just sprinkle some parsley on top, and this is the final dish.
This next one is an open-faced sandwich. It's one that we love to make for brunch or for a late breakfast, like on a weekend, or it's really yummy for lunch as well. And it's one out of 3 open-faced sandwiches that I posted in a video last year with my favorite toppings for open-faced sandwiches. And this one's got some garlic and soy sauteed mushrooms and kale. I put some hummus on there. It's super yummy, super easy and super quick. And here it comes. To start, I rip the leaves off 4 stems of kale, and I keep the stems to the side because I'm gonna cook those as well. But first I rip the kale leaves into bite-sized pieces, and then I chop the stems finely. I'm using 2 portobello mushrooms for this. It's enough for 2 servings, and I slice them into 1/2 centimeter thick slices. Then I heat some rapeseed oil in a frying pan on medium heat, and I saute the kale stems and the mushrooms for a few minutes until they're golden and have shrunken a bit. I season with salt, pepper, as well as garlic powder. So I'm not using fresh garlic here. I made it really easy with some garlic powder. As always, you will find all the measurements and instructions linked in the description box, so just check that out if you want to. And then when the mushrooms are sauteed, I add in the kale, I season with a little bit more salt and mix it up. Then I cover it with a lid and saute for another 2 minutes until the greens are soft and brightly green. In the meantime, I slice my bread and I slather some hummus onto it. I have hummus recipes on my website, so I'll link that down below for you. When the hummus is on and the greens are wilted, I add the mushrooms and the greens onto the sandwich, and then I sprinkle some toasted seeds over the top. I'm using pumpkin, sunflower, and sesame here. Then I also squeeze a little bit of lemon juice on top to lift the flavors. And that's how easy this first combo is. I think it's really yummy, delicious, savory, and hearty, and the lemon really brightens it up, so I hope you'll like it. In a video I shared all about chickpeas and how to cook with them. I shared a little bit of an underrated recipe that I'm hoping you'll open your eyes for because it's super yummy. It's great for meal prep, and it's also really yummy to make hummus out of. It's lemon and herb cooked dried chickpeas. So you cook the chickpeas from dried and with certain seasonings, and it comes out so delicious. I really hope you try this. So these are my soaked chickpeas, and what I like to think about when I soak them is to use a big bowl because they swell up a little when they soak, and I cover them by a few inches of water, and if the water gets brown or murky, I change it. And once I'm ready to cook with them, I drain and rinse them and pop them into the pot. To give these chickpeas a really deep lemon flavor, I use a vegetable peeler and get the rind of a whole lemon into the pot with the chickpeas. I'm also going to add in some aromatics, so I've got 2 onions that I slice up into half moons, and I also grab about 5 garlic cloves that I just slice up roughly. And as usual, you can find the full ingredients list and method linked in the description box. So if you want to make any of these recipes and you want to see it written out, you'll find it linked there. Once that's all sliced up, I just add it into the pot with the other ingredients, and then I drizzle over 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. This helps give a round, deep flavor to the chickpeas, and then I'm also adding in the herbs. So I've got 1 teaspoon of ground coriander, I've got 1 teaspoon of dried thyme, 1/2 teaspoon of dried rosemary, and 1/2 teaspoon of dried sage. I'm also adding in a bay leaf, a good pinch of salt, and some cracked black pepper. And finally, I'm covering it all with water by about 2 inches, and I'm gonna bring it to a boil. And once it boils, I turn it down to a lighter boil or a simmer and let it cook for 1 to 2 hours until it's all tender. And if you find, like I did here, that all the water evaporates, you just add some more and cook until you're happy with the consistency and the flavor. And while they cook, I half a lemon so that I can add the juice into the pot later. And I also chop up some fresh parsley. This is totally optional. I think it's just nice in this season when we have fresh herbs to use them, but it's totally up to you. And once the chickpeas are done, I remove the bay leaf. I also remove the lemon rind. Personally, I don't like the flavor of it, but we're all different, so if you do, please leave it in. And once I've removed all of that lemon rind, I squeeze in the lemon juice of half a lemon, and I also stir through my fresh parsley. Then the chickpeas are ready to serve, and they're delicious straight out the pot like this. Or you could freeze them or keep them in the fridge for about a week, and you can also make a delicious hummus from them. If you want to serve them fresh like this, they taste really good over rice, and I also like to serve a fresh summer salad on the side with a mustard vinaigrette and pour a lot of that juice from the chickpeas in there as well for a nice sauce. From my summer salad videos where I shared 4 yummy summer salads, this is my fennel salad with dill and yeah, lots of yummy flavor. I love fennel. Rob is so tired of me and my fennel. But I'm hoping you're not. I'm hoping you'll embrace this salad. It's just super fresh and yummy on the side of pretty much everything. Salad that's very fresh and vibrant, and I'm starting by slicing the cucumber quite thickly. I like to also half my slices, but you could cut the cucumber in any way you like. Then we're also going to slice up some fennel, and what I do is that I cut it into quarters, and I also remove those little pointy bits that stick out. And then I just slice it in those quarters, and I find this is the easiest way to deal with fennel. I'm also using those pointy bits that I just cut off because they taste equally as good as the rest of the fennel. So I slice that up, and I also slice up a spring onion and some dill. And I just chop that roughly before I combine all the vegetables in a bowl. I zest some lemon over that, and I'm gonna squeeze in the juice as well. And as always, you can find all the measurements and full recipes linked in the description box. I'm also drizzling in some extra virgin olive oil into the bowl, but you could leave this out if you prefer. And I season with some salt and black pepper, and this way I've created a dressing straight into the mixing bowl. I mix all of this up, and then it's ready to serve. I love the combination of the cucumber with the zingy lemon zest and the licoricey fennel, and I like to use some chive flowers to decorate if I have them on hand, but really you don't need to decorate this anymore because I think it's beautiful as it is, and I hope you do too. This salad is really great with something savory, maybe a little bit more heavy, where that freshness can get the chance to cut through that. I'm finishing off with a recipe that I posted quite recently, but I'm hoping you're not tired of yet. It's from my cooking with apples video, or I think I called it something like apple season recipes or something, and it's the parsnip and apple soup. You roast a bunch of stuff in the oven, you blend it up, it comes out the most creamy, yummy, tangy, really earthy and strangely delicious soup that I hope you will try. So first of all, we're going to peel and chop our parsnips. I cut the parsnips into chunks and set them aside. And cut up an onion into quarters or eighths depending on how large it is. I'm also slicing up half of a large leek into rough slices. I
I keep setting all the veggies aside as I go along. Then I cut the apple into quarters and remove the seeds. Now that all my veggies and the apple is chopped up, I'm crushing 4 large garlic cloves, but I leave the skin on. I place everything on an oven tray and I drizzle it with a little bit of oil. I season with some dried rosemary, but of course you could choose fresh if you have it, and some salt and black pepper. I give it all a good mix and then I place it in the oven to roast for about 40 minutes or until the parsnips are soft. So why I like to roast the veggies in the oven for this recipe is because I think it gives it a real depth of flavor. And another thing I like to do is to blend my soup once it's done in my Vitamix or high-speed blender, because it makes it really smooth. But honestly, you could do this with a stick blender as well. You would save yourself a little bit of dirty dishes, and I think you could get it pretty much very smooth with that as well. So don't worry if you don't have that, but I'm going to do that. I'm also going to add in butter beans to this soup, like I said before, and it's a really nice way of making the soup more creamy and rich in a way. And of course it adds a bit of protein to the soup as well, which is, yeah, it can't hurt, right? So I'm just gonna rinse these and then pop them in the blender and prepare everything for when the veggies are done. Once I've added in my rinsed beans to the blender, I'm also adding in some vegetable stock powder. When the vegetables are done in the oven, I'm adding them into the blender as well, followed by water. And I'm also going to season with some salt and black pepper before I blend it smooth. So with this soup, if you find that your blender jug is too small, you can of course split the ingredients in two and blend it twice. And again, like I said, you can use a stick blender as well. So now that it's blended, I'm just gonna pop it into a saucepan, or a big pot actually, and warm it up and let it simmer for a few minutes just so that all the flavors come together, and then it's ready to serve. And I'm gonna serve mine with some tamari roasted seeds, and I'll link down below how I make those, and also with some fresh herbs and some vegan cooking cream, because it adds even more of that creaminess that I really enjoy this time of year. Concludes my little compilation of recipes I made last year that I've really enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed seeing them again if you've already seen them, and that they sparked some ideas for you to cook more vegan, plant-centric foods at home. Or if you haven't seen them before, I hope you enjoyed the first time seeing them. I look forward to seeing you in the videos every week from now on, in January at least. I will be posting new videos on Thursdays, and then I'll see you for live streams on Sundays. And the first one will be making some chili together. So a great meal prep recipe or a yummy warming dinner for the winter weather that at least we're having here. And I hope to see you then, and I hope you stay well. Take care.